fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
That's Warner was notorious in the early days of DVD for a bare bones, and that's actually the DVD I have for Arsenic and Old Lace is a Warner. Bare bones.
Well, Arsenic and Old Lace doesn't exactly have a lot of special features.
No, I mean, it could, because you see with a lot of these older movies, like at least a commentary from like a film historian or something
they get someone
like that.
from Turner Classic Movies to come over and talk about it.
Stuff like that I love, and I didn't. Yeah,
there's a couple things like that on the Universal horror movie collections. Like the Blu-ray for Dracula has a commentary by film historian, and I think actually has two commentaries. I think
does the Spanish have a commentary?
I think there is a commentary on Spanish one. I haven't watched it. There's actually a lot of stuff on that Dracula Blu-ray. If you guys get it, the Universal collections, they've done a pretty good job. Because they're at this point, those Universal movies are not just. They're like more than cult movies. They're they're like a lifestyle for some people.
Zeitgeist.
Yeah.
No, well, there for years. I mean, when I was working from home, I would not pick up a DVD unless it had a commentary, because that's what I would listen to. If I was working at my drawing table and it's a movie I've seen 100 times, I would just listen to the commentary.
Right.
So I was nerdy. I was nerdy before we actually started this nerd podcast.
Well, I mean,
I think we all are, right? That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. So what are we talking about this week?
Yes, let's get into this. This is a Halloween episode.
Welcome everybody who just had to sit through that.
Yeah.
Sorry you had to listen to that, and they're like,
hey, well, if somebody tunes in looking for Halloween and they just hear us blabbing away, they're probably already gone by now.
That's not true. You stay for the free hors d'oeuvres, horsey dervies.
Yes, Mercy Dervies.
Yeah, Mercy Dervies. So anyways, what? Halloween Kills?
Halloween Kills.
Yeah, okay.
And Arsenic and Old Lace. And Muppets Haunted Mansion.
Can we just skip those first two and go right to Haunted Mansion?
No.
Really? No. Can we?
No.
I implore you, please.
No.
Can we just
You already sat through them. You have to talk about them.
I don't want to relive either one of them. All right, fine. We're here already, so we might as well talk about them. It's getting fall. It's getting cold out there.
It's only a few days from Halloween. By the time this episode comes out,
candy. I have no Halloween candy. Someone's gonna TP my house. I know.
I've got too much. You can have a bag of mine.
See, that's the problem. When the kids were here, well, even with the missus, if we had a bag of candy in the house, you'd have to replenish it long before Halloween ever came around. So, but now it's all Christmas stuff is already out. So I don't even know if I can find Halloween.
And
candy.
Believe me, all you kids are on warning. I'm handing out the Butterfingers first. Not a fan of the Butterfingers. If I'm going to eat anything, it's not going to be Butterfingers. Huh? Yeah.
You know what was worse were the Almond Joys. Don't give me anything with coconut.
I love coconut.
I do too.
Coconut is maligned in terms of
it is. I don't think a lot of kids like. I used to tell people I was allergic to it because I hated coconut so much. But now I crave coconut shrimp. But that's a
you know what?
story.
I love coconut ice cream. I always go for that.
What?
Yeah.
I don't even know that's a thing.
It's a thing.
Coconut ice cream, huh?
I've had coconut gelato, which is delicious.
That I can kind of.
My wife loves coconut water. We always have that stock.
Coconut water, I heard, is very healthy.
It's good for it's nice as a base for smoothie. What I use it.
How do you get the straw into that thing, Jim?
You jam it. You really got to jam it. Me and Tom Hanks trying to open a coconut.
Oh, Tom Hanks. That's all right. Let's start.
Is that a segue? You have something about Tom Hanks?
No,
Sort
I
of.
have something about his best buddy, Pete Scolari, who we lost.
Yes.
66.
Yes.
This is heartbreaking. This is Bosom Buddies was probably one of the premier shows as a kid that I latched onto immediately and was probably ridiculed by all of my friends. But my buddy Rich, who is still my best friend, and he was my roommate in college, like we bonded over this show. And this is very heartbreaking. He was only 66. I guess he had been battling cancer. I met him once. This was going back early 2000s when New York Comic Con had just started up again. I had a table in Artist Alley, and it wasn't the big show that it is now. It was literally just a bunch of little tables in the basement, and Pete Scolari set up at the end of my aisle. And so I went over and introduced myself, and I guess they were looking for more celebrities, and his agent had asked him if he wanted to fly out. And so he was there doing, I think he was charging $20-$30. And I'm just like, I'll be back. I didn't sell a lot, and it didn't justify me spending $30 on an autograph. And I kind of kicked myself now. I did like him. I liked him in other stuff. Obviously, he went on Newhart, and what are some of the other shows? Honey, I Shrunk the Kids in syndication. He was on that for a while.
Yeah. Bosom Buddies was one of the shows that I never missed. I was 10 or 11, but my father loved it. Yeah. And so he used to tape it. This was at the dawn of VCR. I think we had a new VCR at the time. We'd always tape it and watch it.
Nice.
It was only on for 2 years. It wasn't a very long
it only ran
show.
2 seasons. And I will tell you that if you still have that VHS tape, that's super rare, because I owned the 2-season DVD. And they could not acquire the rights to Billy Joel's song. And so
really?
That is not, yep.
That's the most iconic part of that show was the opening titles.
I mute it and play the song when I watched the show. Even on MeTV, which I caught the other night, it's they use the end credit song as the opening theme song. Right.
Now I can't remember, did they use the original song or was it somebody else singing?
No, I think it was his copy. It was his version. Yeah.
It was his version. Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. Pete Scolari. We lost him. Let's see, other news items. I know last week Christina had thrown out there that she was going to get rid of Tubi because it has brought you nothing but misery.
It's true.
But you might want to keep it a little bit longer, because apparently Marvel has now backed up all of their movies coming into 22 and 23. So we might have to fill some content.
Sorry, I have the Criterion channel. I don't need to.
So, yeah, but we don't. Jim and I don't have the Criterion channel. So unfortunately, you may have to go back to the septic tank. So you
why?
I don't know if it's production wise or if it's just they're now that we're kind of stepping back from COVID and people are going back to movie theaters. And some of this other stuff is I don't know. I didn't get a solid answer as to why this stuff is. Most of it's only backed up like 3 months. Doctor Strange, like that was set for March, and now it's backed up till May. Most of them are only like a 2-3 month window, but the new Indiana Jones movie's backed up almost a solid year. This guy is not even going to be around.
I bet some of it has to do with shooting schedules, but also I bet they're trying to place their movies, because all the studios now are trying to get like their last 2 years of movies onto schedule. So it's like nobody wants to go head to head with another big tent pole. So I'm sure that has something to do with it. You know, these decisions that are made, like they want their film to come out and they don't want any other big movie around it so that they can, sort of release.
You just figure that Marvel's the big beast. Marvel's the one that everyone else has to stay away from. Mm-hmm. So they can probably just plant their flagpole wherever they want and everyone else has to scatter. Is the way I see it. But then again, you're looking to maximize your dollars. So yeah, so it's unfortunate, but a lot of this stuff is getting backed up. This I found incredibly interesting, which is Hulu has just ordered an 8-episode variety series from Mel Brooks, writing and executive producing, History of the World Part 2.
Okay.
Can this really exist in this day and age? Like, this just boggles my mind. Listen, don't get me wrong. I love this movie, but it is so irreverent and politically incorrect. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. There's something to offend everybody.
But maybe that's what we need.
Yeah.
Listen, everything's getting so watered down. Wanda Sykes and Nick Kroll are also attached to this as writers, and I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see where he's gonna go. I mean,
yeah, but do we really think that they're gonna go there? It's probably will be a watered down version of History of the World Part
Mel
1.
Brooks. I mean, his stuff
but look
has
at
really,
listen, Spaceballs isn't exactly offensive, so I think he's mellowed over the years. Robin Hood, Men in Tights, Dead and Loving It.
That was offensive for other reasons. Yeah. I don't know. I just found this incredibly interesting because it is a very divisive movie.
And just the title of History of the World Part 1 begging for a part 2, which never materialized.
Yeah, what was that, 78, 76?
I think it was 80, 81. I think it was really? More, yeah.
So we'll see. 8 episodes coming to Hulu. I'm going to have to use my son's account.
I do have a news item that I actually read just before we started the show. And maybe you saw this too. That Hayden Christensen will be appearing in the Ahsoka show, which is interesting because it takes place, after Darth Vader's dead. So it could be that he's a Force ghost. It could be a flashback. Could be whatever. But
yeah, I mean, he's also showing up in Obi-Wan, which is obviously after he becomes Vader. So it's curious to see how they're going to actually pull this off, because these are canon. This is going to be, so go to Star Wars where Vader says, when last we met, I was but a learner and you are the master, and you were the master. It's like, all right, well, I guess something more happened in between. And is that filming yet? That is not filming yet. Or
is supposed to start filming, I think, in the next 2 months, with a release sometime next year.
Because you do have Book of Boba Fett coming out in December. And then Obi-Wan, which I don't think that they've released actual dates to when that's going to premiere. But then Ahsoka would probably follow that up. But you're going to have Mandalorian 3 in there. Oh, no, they probably might back off at this point. There's a lot going on in the Star Wars universe.
Jim, you still have time to watch all of Clone Wars.
I still have time.
So that's all the news I have.
All right. So then that means we can move on and we can talk about
scary,
Halloween kills.
Scary.
And before we start talking about the actual plot of this movie, I have to present this to you guys. I've been developing a theory about the Halloween movies because I just rewatched the original one maybe 4 weeks ago with my son, and then
the 78
the 78 one, and then we rewatched the first one of this trilogy. And I've been developing this theory that Michael Myers is not actually a spree killer. He's actually a frustrated artist, because if you think
he does
about
have overhauls. He's a painter.
He posed the teenagers' bodies in the first Halloween, right? He set everything up. He used Judith Meyer's gravestone as like a centerpiece, and then he put the bodies all around the room.
So he's a frustrated interior designer?
And then in the new one, in the 2018 one, he turns the one cop into a jack-o'-lantern, and he poses his head underneath the other cop's arm. And then in this one, he positions the 3 characters on the playground with the season of the witch masks, right? And I just have this theory that in the first movie, Dr. Loomis goes on and on about Michael Myers and the nature of evil, and how he's pure evil, and all he did was spend his time staring out the wall. Maybe we just brought the kid some glue sticks and some construction paper. Several massacres could have been averted. That's all I'm saying. Not
only is he frustrated, he's incredibly fast at what he does. You almost hear going through your head as he's putting together, especially in this one in the playground. It's like he had 10 minutes to put that masterpiece together with the 3 bodies.
Well, listen,
So
he's under a deadline.
I've just had this ongoing theory that I've been building. Really, Michael's only killing people because he's trying to express himself. People just don't understand who he is.
He is misunderstood. I Oh, okay. That's all I got. I got a lot to say about this movie, and yet I got nothing
I think that's a valid theory. I think he does like to obviously pose his victims and leave a mark. It's like his signature.
Yeah.
Well, it's also at the very end of the movie, Laurie does throw out a theory that kind of contradicts that.
Well, I mean, there's this
that he's against funding to the arts in schools. Is that?
Yes,
we can get into like the plot in as much as there's a plot in this movie.
I was gonna say I laughed when you said before we get into the plot, because it really isn't a plot.
I mean, roughly the plot is, as I said last week, like Michael comes out of that basement, steps off the porch, and starts killing people. This is pretty much the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
You know, like Randy says in Scream 2, that the second film is always carnage candy. You know, that the kills have to be bigger and bloodier and gorier.
I don't know if he says this, if Randy says this in Scream, the victims have to be stupider. And I have rarely seen stupider victims in a horror movie than I have seen. They all deserve what every single one of them.
Every single person who dies in this movie deserves to die in this movie. I know Christina doesn't watch TV, but there is a Geico commercial that makes fun of people in scary movies making dumb decisions. This is a 2-hour Geico commercial.
So
I walked out of this movie mad, and I don't even care about this franchise. I wanted my money back, and I didn't even pay for it.
It's interesting because I don't know if you guys listen to Star Talk, which is a Neil deGrasse Tyson's podcast. And he actually had an episode this week on the science of fear. And he had like a literary professor who has like an institute in Denmark. He did like researches the effect of fictional horror on people. And then
I gotta listen to this, then I haven't heard it yet.
And he also had a neuroscientist on who talked about, you know, what fear does to your brain. And the co-host, Chuck Nice, said, you know, why do teenagers in movies always do such stupid things? And she immediately said, because their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. So,
so there's a medical condition. So he's smart enough to go after the teenagers because they're not smart.
But unfortunately, everybody that gets killed in here are fully grown adults. So they can't.
But they were children at one point. Maybe they didn't progress.
You know, before we leap,
spoiler alert,
leap all over this. Spoiler alert. I did admire the beginning because this is a retrofit trilogy here.
I love this. I love this setup because they give you you just go into it like you just watched the first movie.
They're not only giving you a sequel to the 2018 Halloween, they're giving you a sequel of sorts to the 1978 Halloween. You know,
which I really appreciate.
Apologies to all fans of the original Halloween 2, and I'm not talking about the Rob Zombie Halloween 2, because that is swept off the table here. They're picking up right where the original Halloween, and I thought that aspect of this was fascinating.
I thought it was great. I loved it. Because you're really just kind of filling in the little holes in the background. It's not like they're changing anything.
Right.
And you basically get the same character and actor from Wolf of Snow Hollow, played by Jim Cummings here.
No.
He stepped out. He just changed the patches on his jacket.
Yeah, basically. It's the same character. Yeah, you're right.
You know, the first stupid action, they go into Michael, and this is in 78. So Michael has just gotten up off the ground and walked away from the house where Jamie Lee Curtis was babysitting in. And now the police are looking for him. And this is maybe a 10-minute segment at the beginning of Halloween Kills. So a little flashback to 78. So, of course, he goes right back to his abandoned childhood home. And the police, you know, to their credit, because they don't think of this until very late in the movie in 2018, but they go to his house here and investigate. And Jim Cummings' character goes right to his room, looks out the same window that Michael used to look out, looks down, and there's fresh boot prints there. It takes him a good 5-10 seconds to process this as a good policeman.
You just stepped on evidence. Yeah, nice going.
Boot prints? Does that mean that somebody's just been here?
Wait a minute. You see the light bulb go off.
But this is a good jump. It was a good jump scare though, because the mute bang, then Michael comes out, and then the setup is that the sheriff from the 2018 version, played by Will Patton, deputy, Hawkins was on the job in that Halloween night, 1978, and Michael's got Jim Cummings with a knife to his throat, and he's hiding behind him, and the deputies takes the shot and, of course, shoots Jim Cummings by accident. Michael leaves and is overtaken by the police outside, and then that's the end of the 78 story. And then they go into, then there's a flash forward to 2018. So you don't actually see the burning house until about 15 minutes into this new version in this sequel.
Yeah. Nor do you see Laurie for more than 5 minutes in this entire movie.
Yes.
Because it's not. I mean,
it's not about her. It's not
really
no,
about
it's not.
Laurie.
And this is the problem. This is the problem with the trilogy, knowing that there's a third movie, that this is a filler episode. This is nothing but getting you from point A to point B, because you want to see the Laurie versus Michael showdown. And you do not get that in any way, shape, or form. This is
I mean, I think this film is trying to expand out, right? And it's trying to say something about collective trauma. It's trying to say something about mob violence. I think that its reach exceeds its grasp, but I think that they're trying for something. And I think too, because I know that it's the middle chapter of a trilogy, I'm almost reluctant to judge it completely, because I want to see how it fits into the whole arc.
That's exactly how I felt about Matrix too.
Of the story. I want to see how, I think they're trying to go for something here. I think they're trying to be more than just show the most brutal kills on screen. But I think, I
agree with you wholeheartely. But like I said, Laurie throws out this little thing at the end that, Michael is not a human. He is something else, which is fine. I have no problem. If you want to create that he's some kind of a manifest, he's a tulpa that feeds on fear, but you don't shoehorn it in the last 2 minutes of this movie just to set up the third.
No, I mean, I think that just goes back to what Dr. Loomis says in the original Halloween.
Let me bring that up, because the Loomis aspect of this, I was baffled at how they did this.
They pulled it off. Yeah.
Is that computer generated? What is going on here?
Like a deep fake kind of a thing.
But no, that I looked at some of the behind the scenes. That's an actor. That was totally practical. There was a guy in makeup. That
really?
Yeah.
Wow. That was seamless. I mean, obviously it's in the dark and whatnot, but
because the Loomis, just for background, the Loomis character shows up at the end of the 1978 segment in the beginning of this movie. And like he stepped out of Halloween or Halloween 2, because he's not alive in the 2018 version. But it's amazing. I was convinced that they took him some kind of a scan of his body and put him in here, but no, it was a guy in makeup.
I mean, I think all the sort of the Laurie speech and the sort of the reference, the things people are saying about he's pure evil and all this kind of stuff, I think that just goes back to, there's a speech that Dr. Loomis gives in the original film to the sheriff played by Lee Brackett, who actually comes back in this. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, the sheriff's name is Lee Brackett, because it's a tribute to the screenwriter Lee Brackett. The actor comes back in this film, and the Loomis gives him a speech about the nature of evil, right? And that was a core thing that Carpenter wrote for the original film, that he wanted Michael to seem, sort of the embodiment of evil. So I think it all the sort of references to that stuff is, again, just sort of going back to the original film, but I think its effectiveness is sort of dependent on your familiarity with the original, the original story, which you assume that people who are watching this
or you just got stuck watching it because you're on a podcast. And I like the first one. I didn't go back to see what my buckets were, but I did like the 2018.
Yeah, the 2018 is universally liked. I think that they really
I think
did a great job with that.
I liked it. And like Jim said, I love the fact that they just, it took me a couple beats to kind of remember who these characters are. And especially when you see the kid and he's in a dress and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. They went as Bonnie and Clyde. This poor kid, 2/3 of the movie, he's running around in a skirt.
I think the whole movie he is. I don't think he ever leaves.
He does change before he confronts. He does change his clothes.
I was getting that Louise Brooks vibe from him. Now he was a jerk in the first one, wasn't he?
He was. He cheated on Allison basically right in front of her.
That's why she left.
Another girl.
Yeah,
right, that's why she left the party. Yeah. I will say that my screening was more entertaining than the movie itself because I had Uncle Jesse and the two Duke boys sitting behind me and they were cheering on every kill. The dad was like, there's my boy. And I'm like, oh, here we go.
That's just interesting. This goes back to what I said when we were watching Scream, how like Scream is the only franchise that I can think of that keeps the focus on the victims rather than the killer, right?
Yeah, so this is all about the killer.
The Scream franchise is about Sydney, and every other horror franchise after the first film is about the killer. Every Nightmare on Elm Street film is about Freddy. Every Friday the 13th film is about Jason. Every Halloween film is about Michael Myers. And
you're right though, because they just introduced these characters just so you can watch them get killed off.
And they introduced them in a light that is not flattering because you introduced to Tommy Doyle, who's played by Anthony Michael Hall here, bringing everybody down in a bar. It's like karaoke or open mic night.
First of all,
I just want to remind you that people died on this night. And you see people slowly leaving the bartenders. You got to do this now, Tommy. Come on.
Yeah, really. Come on. Every Halloween, you got to. But here's the funny thing, which I turned into a drinking game because every time someone said evil dies tonight, or, for 40 years he's haunted us, and yet no one seems to remember who Michael Myers actually is. So how
or where his house is, because the police don't think until the end maybe he's going back to his childhood home. We should go there.
In the beginning of that movie, that the house sat there empty for like 18 years. It was like somebody would have claimed that.
Tommy's evidently running for office in November, and that's going to be.
No, he's not running for anything now.
He was. That was his plan.
Not now.
And they're going to march on the Capitol as well.
Dude, I was like, is this taking place on Halloween or January 6th? The mentality, and again, I know, Christine, you said it. This is, they're feeding into this mob mentality, and it's just so over the top. And you see this poor guy who was one of the escaped inmates from the bus going back to the first movie, and he's just like this helpless little old guy who looks like the Penguin, and they are just out for blood.
And
it made my skin crawl. That's worse than watching someone get eviscerated or stabbed through the neck with an LED light. Like, agreed. I was just like, this is so disturbing, and it is so scary how it escalates, and it's disgusting.
I do think that scene was the scariest scene in the movie, and it's the most actually disturbing scene because he's an innocent person who's asking for help. Like, he comes to the hospital and says, help me, right, because he's hurt, and then these people start chasing him, and that's where like I said, I think this film is trying to say something about like the way people act collectively, like when they get in the grip of fear. I just don't know if it sort of landed the plane. And
I get it, but to Jim's point, people are just doing stupid things throughout this movie. Hey, we're gonna go get him. We're gonna go get this guy who just killed 12 firefighters and took down police officers. We're gonna take him out with a bat.
So you talk about the posses that are formed at the beginning, and these are such ill-advised people. The minute that they see something suspicious, one person goes out into the night to investigate. You all stay here.
You stay here.
Why are you grouped together in the first place?
Yeah, he's in my car. I got it. Let me go and stand right in front of the car with it running. Let me see. I can stop him.
And that poor guy, the husband, he's like, go check it out. Michael Myers is in my car. He's like, no. And she goes, what's the matter with you? Go ahead.
Stethoscope. I'll be right back. You go. Oh no, she was the doctor.
She's a doctor, right?
Yeah,
he was the doctor. Yeah.
I don't think Michael Myers suffers fools because he egregiously kills all of these stupid people. And like I said before, unfortunately, they do deserve it.
Yeah.
And then they get artistically posed.
Yeah.
I don't think that Big John and Little John really deserved.
No. And that was also upsetting because I also thought that they were sort of doing things right. Like, they were going through the house. They were, they locked the doors, and then they heard someone, and then they were sort of like checking in with each other. Like, I cleared this room. I cleared this. You know what I mean? Like, they were sort of doing things right.
Methodical about it. Not just going, who's in there?
Now, did they give the impression that Big John was some kind of special ops guy? Because there was a straight up homage to Dawn of the Dead where he's taking his rings off, just like Peter at the end of that. Like, I'm, all this, all these accoutrements are going away right now, and I'm stepping back into my like Marine past or something to that effect, because he was going to take no prisoners. And was that Anne Murray that Michael chose to play?
Yes, this is the second movie that Anne Murray has showed up in. We're like in an Anne Murray renaissance.
So he stopped stalking, went to their album collection, pulled out some Anne Murray, and queued it up on the turntable.
He's a frustrated artist.
Yeah,
because
I love Anne Murray. I'm sorry.
He's an artist, and he poses them too. He poses them together,
like the photo. Yeah. But you're right. Those two did not deserve. They didn't do anything.
Well, no, I think that if you've got a killer in your house, I think you can pause on the nickname. Honey, do you see the serial killer? Yeah, Poopy Coo, do you see the serial killer up there?
Well, you don't know how else. John, are you talking to yourself? No, you, Little John. Oh, okay, Big John, Little John. Oh, man. Yeah, I will say that the minute these two characters showed up, my hankles went up because I was just waiting for these three good old boys behind me to say something, but they did not.
They didn't.
Well, they did. Well, I will say that there was a comment made during the previews, and there was something about gender neutral, and the dad was just like, "Are you kidding me?" Here we go. Today's the day I die because I'm going to say something, but I digressed. I shoved the popcorn into my gullet.
So let's talk about the beginning where Michael steps out of the panic room and does kill all those firemen. And he dispatches them. They all have weapons of one sort or another, firefighting gear, right? And the one guy has like a makeshift chainsaw, kind of a jaws of life thing.
It's a sawzall,
yeah. Which Michael completely decimates.
Doesn't make any sense. There's no one else in the house, so there's no reason to have that.
Yeah, there's no reason for them to go in, unless they're checking out to see if there's anybody in the house.
See, here's the thing.
Yeah, because they did pass it, so they did.
Like Lori didn't call the emergency services, so they don't know that Lori's out of the house.
She was in the because they pass her as she's in the trunk and she's screaming, "Don't go!"
So anyway, Michael gets out and he makes short work of these firemen. And then very, very egregiously kills the closest neighbors. And apparently Michael does not suffer fools, and he does not like potty mouths either, because these two are like, F this, F that. As soon as you meet them, Michael's not having any of that. He's like, I was hoping that this was going to be a PG-13. Now it's R, and you're going to die.
I had a lot of kids. I had kids in my theater running up and down the aisle as well. So
and that LED light.
Yeah, no. There were some disturbing kills.
Now, what threw me is, did they have patio doors leading into their bathroom?
It didn't make any sense. I couldn't figure out the geography of that room, because it almost looked like you had to go out. It was almost like an outhouse that was slightly off from the pool.
Out.
Yeah, or like a little shed.
Ooh, and the husband, he really didn't like him. He was stabbing him repeatedly.
He used him as like a tryout for all the knives in the kitchen.
He's like, okay, what's the best angle I can get a stab in?
Listen, this guy's been doing it for a while. You think he probably would have figured it out by now.
He's rusty. He's been in the hospital.
That is true. Right.
It's funny you talk about like kids though, and like gruesome kills. So like my son is now the absolute perfect age to watch this movie, because he's 15 and a half. And he just thinks all the kills are, hilarious. The way that kills.
Well, like I said, the guys behind me were laughing, they're giggling their asses off.
He's like, Michael did this, Michael did that. I mean, like, this is who these franchises are created for. It's so interesting to me to watch these movies now with him and think about how I was at that age.
Sure.
Versus how I view a lot of this stuff.
I can't wait to watch Beetlejuice with my son. He's never seen that before.
Nice.
And I have to give a shout out to I think the MVP here is Judy Greer as Karen, but even she is not spared from some of the stupidity, because she says she's trying to convince everybody in the beginning that Michael is not obsessed with her mother. It was the doctor that brought him.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
But then she keeps saying that Michael's coming to the hospital.
He's coming here.
Completely. And then she won't let her daughter go with the posse. But then she's like, go sit with your grandmother, while she's just said that Michael is coming to the hospital to kill her. So I think that's obviously not a fault of the character of the actress. It's just the script was contradictory.
I do continue to love. I loved this in the first movie. They're still wearing their clothes from the first movie. Karen's very defiant Christmas sweater.
Right.
She's like
I said,
it's not Halloween.
Nope. Yeah.
I will not acknowledge.
So do we know what the third movie is called?
Halloween Ends.
Oh wow, how original. I was gonna go with Sucks, but okay.
No, Halloween will end.
Now this is interesting because it's going to have a time jump. So the first movie takes place in 2018. So it's got to be
another Halloween, right?
This movie takes place in 20. So this movie ends with Michael taking his rightful place, looking out his window. So do they just give up at the end? Like, okay, he's going to be a tourist attraction now. We can't stop him. Right. Just let him stay there.
It's like the lamp in Christmas Story. People just walk by and look at him, take their picture with him.
That's the whole thing. I mean, theoretically, if you just left him alone, it seems like he just wants to come and stand in his sister's room. So
how
relive the glory days?
How did they make up that room in exactly the same layout that the sister had it in? If that house was abandoned for so many years, they had the same like little table with the mirror in the corner.
No, I don't know.
Did the two Johns?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those gentlemen were pure artists. They were interior decorators. That house looked nice.
It did.
And they had some Anne Murray in their record collection, so you can't fault them for that.
No. I will say the only redeeming element of my viewing was the fact that the frozen Coke machine was working. So I was very happy with that.
I mean, I was engaged for an hour and 45 minutes. Like it was what I expected to get out of this movie. You know what I mean? Kind of based on the history of the franchise. You know what kind of movie it is when you go see it. And I kind of got what I expected. Like I said, I'm reluctant to judge it because I think they're going somewhere.
But I think that's
they're not
problem.
There yet.
These movies should stand on their own. I like I said, I enjoyed the first movie. This movie does not advance anything.
As I was leaving the theater, there was a teenage couple also walking out, and the boyfriend was saying to the girl, "So the whole point of that movie, we're going to keep making more, and you can't kill them."
Yeah. Right. Like I said, I have no problems if you want to go into, dive into this, that he's some kind of a paranormal, he's an embodiment of evil, but it's like the mob has him down. It's the very end of the movie and they have him cornered.
They shoot him in the arms. They shoot him in the shoulders. I'm like, go for the middle.
You just have this cut back to Laurie talking with Hawkins, and she's like, he's not really human, and he's he's this evil thing, and then he just rises up like suddenly he heard her, like Candyman. He's like, "Oh, you believe in me?" And he just stands up and slaughters everybody. And
but that's what happens in the first film, because Laurie stabs him, and then he sits up, and then Loomis shoots him 6 times, and he falls from the balcony, and he's
but yet he gets arrested. So he doesn't go after the cops at the end of the 78 massacre. He's just like, okay, I'm done.
I could have done without them taking the mask off either, because I think that humanizes him. Even though they didn't show his face, like make it so that mask is like permanently stuck to him.
I don't know. I did like that as a technique for luring him, though. Like he doesn't feel safe without the mask.
Yeah. But then she leaves it in the street.
So that he'll come and get it. So that she can get him. That's the thing I like about Karen. She tricked him twice. You knew that because she got him in the first movie too. You knew he was.
Well, he tricked her in the end.
He was going to come after her because she definitely is one of the few characters who genuinely got one over on him.
But he gets her in the end anyways. Like Jim mentioned, like the cartoon sound effects of him like going from point A to point B. Like he was like Roadrunner, like me, and he could. So all of a sudden he's like past all the security that's outside the house.
Well, I think Halloween Ends is going to be like Jaws: The Revenge. This time it's really personal because Michael has just killed Laurie's daughter.
And Laurie dying. Everyone is dead now except for the granddaughter.
See, I'm not 100% I'm not 100% sure that Karen's dead. Because she was standing in the window looking out, and it was like she was imagining something about Michael. So I think that you could make an argument that maybe she was just imagining that moment. You could potentially bring her back.
Up.
Yeah. So, I mean, he could be there because he's Michael Myers and he's magical, but I also think there's an argument to be made that maybe
he's Nightcrawler.
That
teleport. So until you get to the third movie, you're not gonna, because we thought that Hawkins was dead in the first one, and I like the fact that he was not. I did like the fact that this guy, and of course, he's like, listen, it's my fault. I had the shot 30 years ago, and I didn't take it.
It wouldn't have killed him.
That is true.
It apparently wouldn't have killed him anyway.
And they killed him anyways, right? So it didn't matter. He just killed his partner. That's all. So,
so the big question is, what happens during this time jump? Is he still in the window? Do they arrest him? Does he escape? So
I guess we'll have to wait 2 years to find out, or next year.
Next year. I think from what I understand, they film these back to back. So
because I think that Jamie Lee Curtis has already come out and made comments about this third movie, which makes perfect sense. If you're going to film this movie, and especially with, just like Back to the Future 2 and 3, like you got your crew there. It's one cohesive storyline. Hopefully you just keep everybody there an extra 3 months and you film them back to back.
But there is so much back and forth on the interwebs about this. People either love it or absolutely hate it.
Stayed away from the Joe Bob Briggs Facebook page because I know it's become very divisive. I am glad I saw it in the theater. Christina, you bring this up too, which is, horror movies should be like a shared experience. If I had Peacock and I was sitting at home, my wife she wouldn't even be in the same room with me. She probably would have left the house if she knew I was watching this. But going to the theater, and again, I will say that Bo and Luke Duke behind me, when the movie was over, they turned to their dad and they're like, "Really, Dad? How many more of these movies are you going to drag us to? That was stupid." And I loved it. And he was just like, "Whatever." I loved it.
I definitely think that this was in terms of structure and gore, this is 100% for the hardcore horror fans. This is for people who like this kind of stuff, people who actually watched all of the Friday the 13th films, because
you get your money's worth as far as gore goes.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, in 20 years from now, are they going to throw out this movie and the next one and just make a sequel to Halloween 2018?
It'll be like Godzilla. It'll just continually be like all the Godzilla movies where they pretend that
none of that
it's
happened.
only the first movie. Only the first movie ever happened.
This is a new world we live in. Come up with something different, unique, whatever.
I mean, maybe they will. Like I said, maybe they'll pull it all together in the third film, and
right. Make this one.
Yeah,
better.
this all makes sense.
An overriding story arc that just ties it all in.
Whatever.
The one thing, so I'm assuming that those three characters that they call out in the bar as the original survivors were the original actors.
So yes.
Okay.
Nancy Stevens, who was the nurse in the car with Sam Loomis, she was the survivor from the first film. And by the way, her husband directed the original sequel. The original Halloween 2.
Really? Huh.
Yes. And Kyle Richards, who played Lindsay, the little girl in the first movie. And the guy who plays Lonnie, though,
is that a new character?
That's a new character.
That's a new character. They just kind of filled in that gap.
No, it wasn't that the kid that pushed Tommy in the original Halloween, Lonnie?
I don't remember.
Remember when Tommy had the big jack-o'-lantern and he got pushed and it smushed?
He got pushed and it got squashed. I remember that, but I don't remember the name of the kid who did it.
Yeah.
Because Lonnie is getting bullied himself at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I so wanted those kids to be killed by Michael Myers.
Oh,
one of those girls was the mother later on. Flash forward when she sees her son in the morgue. I think that was one of those bullies. Yeah.
Lady.
She's Oscar's mom?
That was Oscar. That
I believe so. That's why
that's
why they made such a point of saying their last name. And then when that woman goes to the hospital, they said, "What's your last name again?" And so
that's right. He did ask her.
I didn't
see,
catch
these
that
are little Easter eggs that obviously, if you're a diehard,
of this film. But the scene where Lonnie falls down on the sidewalk and Michael walks toward him, that's not from the original film.
No, that's part of the little, that's the little ad hoc sequel that they do.
Right.
The original movie.
And then, of course, Anthony Michael Hall did not play Tommy in the original
And I was looking into some history. Paul Rudd played Tommy previously.
Yes, I did see that. Didn't want to bring him, or he couldn't come back. He was filming something else. That's
he's probably like, yeah, I'm filming something. I'm busy. I can't.
Yeah, but I
can't.
I don't know. I think it would be cool. I did see. So there's a news article, and they were talking about 30 years ago, 3 people died, and they were showing all of the yearbook photos of the kids. And I guess the actor who played Bob, who died in the first movie, that was his only acting credit. And the producers could not find this guy whatsoever because I wanted a picture. So he was Googling Bob yearbook pictures, and he found a picture of Bob Odenkirk, and that's what they used as Bob's picture in the news article, is Bob Odenkirk's yearbook picture. Apparently they had to have gotten his blessing, but so Bob Odenkirk is in this movie.
I read that, but I didn't notice it.
I didn't notice it either. I just brought that to the masses. That's the only little fun fact that I have for this entire movie.
Rolling Stone, I saw a blurb that was probably the only memorable one because they're pretty mean-spirited, but this one said, "It murders the desire to ever watch a Halloween movie again."
Oh, that's clever.
Not as clever as whoever reviewed Prisoners of the Ghostland, I have to say.
I think that because horror has been so mainstreamed these last few years, and there's sort of been an elevation of the horror genre in like a mainstream way that I would almost say is like sort of the opposite of like, it's sort of like literary fiction versus genre fiction, where there's been this sense that horror is going, like pushing new boundaries and going to new places. And I think mainstream critics who don't watch horror movies as a whole are very derisive of this film because they don't know what the genre is, like fundamentally. You know what I mean? They're not the people who watched Prom Night. They're not sort of the core audience. So I mean, I don't know what people expected. You knew what this movie was going to be from the preview.
I don't know. I guess I fall in that category then, because it did not work for me.
So this is as good a time as any. What buckets would we give Halloween
Well, you might as well
Kills?
start at the bottom. I'm giving it 2.
That's better. Yeah. I think that's better than what your review was given on. So
yeah, I think so too.
No.
I would say it's a 3. It's fine. I was engaged for an hour and 45 minutes. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I'm curious to see where they go. I think possibly I'm giving it a little extra credit because I did like the first one a lot.
Well, I did like the first one. I think I gave the first one over a 3.
And because again, I want to see kind of where they go with the sense of it, but I thought it was fine. It was 3.
I mean, if you're expecting a Laurie Michael showdown, you don't get that at all.
You will, but you don't get it here.
You will, but that's what I'm saying. You could have done without this movie and just gone right for the
jugular.
Yeah, this is a filler episode.
I'm not going to break tradition. I'm solidly in the middle of you two on this one. 2.25. These victims were probably some of the stupidest I've ever seen in a horror movie, and I've seen a lot. But I did really like the fact that they tried to show you what happened after. And I just wish that we got more of that, like what happened after the events of 1978 on that night on Halloween. Just like Christina said last night, it was a movie. I was there. I was engaged. I jumped a couple of times. It entertained me, and that's all I can ask.
There you go.
It's interesting on that Star Talk episode, the researcher Matthias Clayson, he said that studies that they've done have showed that horror fans have been like more psychologically stable during the pandemic than other people, and he thinks it's because people who watch a lot of horror have already run through like nightmare scenarios in their heads.
Did they actually survey this?
There was some kind of study that he did. He mentioned it during the show. Go listen to it. It's a fun episode.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out. I do have that on my pod catchers.
So, all right. So what are we doing next? We've got 2 things on dock here, but we don't. Are we going Arsenic or are we going Muppets?
I think we have to go Arsenic. You got to stay in the same vein. Yeah, I agree.
All right. So let's go to the
Haunted
concession.
Mansion's a bonus. You got to stay all the way through in order to.
That's more than just a bonus, my friends. But let's go to the concession stand. We'll be right back with Arsenic and Old Lace.
Super Shocker number 1, Dr. Macabre's Frightmare of Movie Monsters. Imagine seeing almost all the screen's scariest monsters alive, in person. Hunchback of Notre Dame, Teenage Frankenstein, Daughter of Dracula, The Fly, a man's body, a fly's head. Rodan, the flying monster, the colossal beast, and more, many more, never here before. Plus, Super Shocker number 2, Spooks A-Poppin', a thrilling new idea in spook shows. We double dare you to see this double header of super monstrous, superhuman, super shockers.
Okay, we're back. And we are going classic. We're going black and white.
This is 44.
We don't usually dip this far back into the past.
Unless it's a monster movie.
Well, I mean, I picked this because it was set on Halloween.
This is firmly a Halloween film.
And it's a comedy about serial killers.
Yes, it is.
Hysterical.
It is. It's
no, I was being facetious.
No, I think this is very funny. This is a movie I've watched so many times. I could recite it to you.
Now, wait, I saw this first when I was a kid. My dad, I remember it because he's the source of many of the things that I like to this day. And I remember he said, you have to watch this. And I was maybe 10 years old. And I'm pretty sure that he taped it off of PBS. And as a kid, I thought it was hilarious. I thought Cary Grant was the funniest thing ever. I remember laughing out loud heartily. Just like Robert De Niro in Cape Fear. I just didn't have the cigar. I just didn't have the cigar in my hand.
Have your feet up on the chairs.
Nudging whoever's next to me. Hey, look at this. But I loved it. I loved it. But the thing is that I haven't seen it since I was a kid. So this is the first viewing in at least 30 years.
This is my first viewing ever. For whatever reason, this title, Arsenic and Old Lace, I tied it into like a Cagney or not Cagney and Lacey, but like a Bonnie and Clyde type of thing. I guess I had no clue what this really was. And I do like Cary Grant because obviously North by Northwest is one of my favorites. But when my wife picked us up from the library, the kid who checked it out, he was like, this is like one of my favorite movies ever. So I was super excited that here's this young kid who was like I got to go back and watch it now. So,
well, I mean, I think that if you're used to kind of late career Cary Grant, if you're used to like North by Northwest all that kind of stuff, like if you're used to Charade or Touch of Mink, to Catch a Thief, those are like movies he made late in his career. He was much more mellow. Here he's only about 40 years old, but early in his career, he was a vaudeville actor. And you see a lot of that vaudeville quality still in his performance.
Well, this is very obvious that this was based on a play.
Yes.
Even though it's filmed as a movie, it's set up like a stage play. Stage left, stage right. There's a lot there, they cut a couple times or whatever, but it is set up like that.
It mostly takes place in one room.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
But like the ongoing joke about Boris Karloff, I only got it by doing research after the fact that he was part of the stage production, but was not in the movie. So this was kind of like an homage to him. Otherwise, it was just it took me 3 days after watching this before I actually put pen to paper and took a single note because I truly didn't know what I had just witnessed.
Well, it's a very bizarre plot if you think about it. In a lot of ways, it's very subversive for 1944.
Definitely for its time.
Because, like you said, he is so slapstick and he is so Dick Van Dyke-ish in his mannerisms and the pratfalls and the two aunts. I absolutely adored. I thought that they were spot on. I loved them. But in the opening credits, you get these witches, and I'm like, are these women supposed to be witches? No. It really doesn't have anything to do with Halloween whatsoever. The first 10 minutes, my wife and I are looking at each other going, what the hell is going on? This guy's secretly getting married. Is he like he's running from these newspaper reporters? He wrote this book about how marriage is horrible, but it doesn't really play into the plot whatsoever. Like it was weird. I had a really hard time with this one.
But it is a very sort of strange idea if you think about it, because they're trying to make comedy out of the fact that these women
are murdering people.
are serial killers.
And they're just nonchalant about it. And I think that is because he's playing, they are playing so straight-laced, and he is playing so broad and over the top.
Well, I think you need to be broad in the situation where you're on stage. You need to project to the audience. And that carries over, even though he wasn't on stage playing this role, it carries over. Now, this was my introduction to Cary Grant. And anything I've ever seen him in since, I've been disappointed that he wasn't as broad.
Because he's not as this. This was
that's what
new
he was.
For me. This was
like
really...
Abbott. He was like Abbott and Costello.
Yes,
he was a super comedian, right?
This is very much in the Abbott and Costello vein.
If you guys, it's like, if you go and watch Bringing Up Baby, made a few years before
this movie a couple times.
He's very much like that in Bringing Up Baby. Again, like where he was still young, he still had like a lot of that vaudeville energy, like that very broad quality. Like to me, nobody does
stage.
Nobody does a double take like Cary Grant. You know,
what?
Josephine Hull and Gina Dare, who play Abby and Martha, his aunts. I love Josephine Hull. She also plays Jimmy Stewart's sister in Harvey. She didn't do a ton of films. She was a really well-known Broadway actress. She had also actually directed some plays on Broadway. Again, like very unusual for the time. She was a trailblazer. And she cracks me up in this movie, like with her little like dancing walk when she goes to the door. Cary Grant's character says, like, how did the man die? And she's like, the man died because he drank some wine with some poison in it. Like, don't you worry about it. Like, she's just sort of like, she's almost gaslighting him, you know, like, it's not a big deal.
Yep.
And I love it. They both sound to me, and I know neither of them did the voice, but it's like two witch hazels from Bugs Bunny. It's like they should be singing a cup of tea.
They reminded me of the little fairy ladies from Sleeping Beauty. You just needed one more to complete the set.
And what's funny about it is, you know, they think they're doing a charitable service. You know, they even tell Mortimer, this is one of our charities.
It's assisted suicide. That's what it is. Yeah. But, you know, unbeknownst to the poor victim.
Well, I was going to say, the people, what's that? You don't feel so good? Why don't you come over here and have some wine?
Yeah.
And now you're dead. Well, it's funny you mentioned Bugs Bunny, because I think that's the only, Looney Tunes is the only exposure I ever had to who Peter Lorre was. Like his portrayal in the cartoons as a kid. And he does not disappoint.
I forgot he was in this. That was such a nice surprise.
It was to see him. Yeah.
And I think he's wonderful in this. And I think he has actually some of the best lines in the movie. First of all, he has a couple like that I love, especially first, you know, he says, Johnny, you can't leave a dead body in the rumble seat, you know, like just totally straight face. But the biggest thing is my favorite scene in the movie is the scene where Jonathan says, oh, you know, Mr. Spinelza is going to go in the basement with a friend of Mortimer's, and Abby and Martha are like, it's not Mortimer's friend. He's our gentleman. Right. And then he says he can't go down. Abby says he can't go down there because there's already 12 bodies down there and there won't be any room for him. You know, she's very dismissive. Peter Lorre's character, Dr. Einstein, starts laughing and he's like, we traveled all around the world. We've been chased all around the world, and they got just as many as you. They got 12 and you got 12.
Yeah.
And then Johnny gets really mad, right?
Yeah.
And he starts counting off. And then like she's like, no, don't brag. He died of pneumonia. Right. You know? It's so great. It's so brilliant. They just, and the very straight-faced conversation about how many people they've killed.
And I love Peter Lorre trying to explain why Johnny looks like Frankenstein. I was intoxicated.
Right. We'll fix you again. Don't worry. We'll go at it again.
You know,
that poor wife, though. That girl just got shafted big time. That is just
Mortimer's wife.
Yeah. For about Elaine. 5 minutes. Off to Niagara Falls. I did like the running joke of the taxi guy just waiting there the entire time. And I'm like,
but you never found out what Elaine's father made of all this, of the wedding specifically, because they were afraid of it, but you never saw him again after those first opening scenes. But yeah, the scene where Cary Grant is sitting on the window seat and he just, for whatever reason, opens it up, and the double takes that he does from that point on, like trying to process that there's a body in there.
I did appreciate the fact that they never showed the guy. I mean, yeah, when they're dragging the body in, you see the feet or whatever, but you don't see any dead bodies.
And then
you don't see
when Teddy was carrying him in the darkness, you see the outline of the shoes as he struggles down the stairs.
We didn't even bring up Teddy Roosevelt. Speaking of which,
one of the best parts of the characters is that everybody just accepts Teddy the way he is.
Yeah.
They all just, it's not even.
He was trying to get him committed. He's like, we have enough Teddy Roosevelt.
And he's trying to blame
George Washington or something.
He's trying to cover for his aunts by blaming Teddy on all this stuff. So he's working it out in his head. How can I fix
this? Guy's nuts already. So why not we just commit him?
Right,
that I didn't like about the character at all.
Well, no, I mean, he was going to be committed anyway, right? It was already had been discussed, and they said, after we're gone, Mortimer's going to put Teddy in Happydale. So he's thinking,
I'll just put him in now.
Right, I'll put him in now, and then if this gets exposed, we'll just, say it was Teddy. But unfortunately, I think Abby and Martha would have stepped forward to take credit because they
absolutely they were so proud of what they were. They were proud of what they were doing. I think that this would have been much more impactful if I saw it on a stage somewhere, because again, the Teddy character is so over the top, and he's like Kramer whenever he shows up. You're just like, this guy's awesome.
And all the actors, Josephine Hall and Gina Dare, and then I just forgotten the actor who plays Teddy. They were all in the stage play with Karloff, and then they took a break from.
Why was Karloff not in this movie?
So
if he played that character,
so the show was actually still running when they made this film.
Okay.
And Karloff wasn't just the star, he was actually an investor in the play. And he was sort of the big draw for people to come to see the show. And because he was an investor, obviously, he wants
as much, bang for the dollar. Yeah. So it's I can't leave the show for X amount of months to.
Right. So they left, the other actors left the stage show for 8 weeks to film this.
Wow.
And
that seems like a long time.
And he stayed,
especially if it's something that you played every night.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so it was the three of them had been on in the stage show, and you can tell that Josephine Hall and Gina Dare, they know Abby and Martha perfectly.
Right. Yeah.
And even just their chemistry together, I think, is wonderful. The way they talk to each other. I love that, even that very ominous moment when Martha takes the hat and puts it in the cabinet, and you see the other
hats, right? Yeah. It's you're running out of room. You have to get in the cabinet. Keep this up.
And let me tell you, the jump scare when Johnny appears through the window, it was bigger than anything in Halloween Kills. I think I jumped.
That is
much
a
more.
Scary-ass looking man. I will say the makeup was pretty impressive, the scars and whatnot.
And that character, talk about macabre, when Cary Grant finally shows up and he sees Johnny and he's convinced that is Johnny, because Johnny tells him, do you remember when I tied you to the bedpost? And I'm like, what did he do to him?
He put needles under his fingernails.
Fingernails.
Come on, man.
I've led a strange life, Mortimer.
Yeah.
Mortimer. That's a hell of a name right there, Mortimer. I wish I had been exposed to this as a kid, because I probably would have appreciated it much more. This was a real oddity for me.
I love this movie. Just a stupid amount. It's one of those things.
I could see it though. It would take multiple viewings for me to kind of wrap my head around what I just witnessed and take it in for what it is.
It's the more you watch it, the funnier it gets. We're waiting for that.
I agree that probably would.
Yeah. I love that when they're in the basement and they're singing and they're having services, and Mortimer has gone across the graveyard to speak to Elaine, and he says, insanity runs in my family, practically gallops.
Yeah, practically gallops. And that was another weird thing, which is at the end, oh no, honey, you're not a Brewster.
He's doing backflip. He's like, I'm not part of this family. It's like, see ya.
Yeah, now all of a sudden he's like, screw you.
Yeah.
Yeah. The old ladies did it.
Johnny got the billy club, if you notice that. He got a blow to the head from the police officer. But Einstein made it out. Einstein did not get arrested.
Dr. Einstein.
This is such a great scene, because he's trying to leave. He's trying to get out before anyone notices him. And then Mortimer's like, come back and sign these papers.
Yep.
And then he signs the papers. And as he's walking out, the police chief is reading like off his description, and he's starting to
That was actually pretty funny.
He's starting to think that he's been caught, right? But my favorite thing about the description is he's describing him physically, right? And he's like, he's 5'3", he weighs 140 pounds, he's about 40 years old. And then he says, poses as a doctor. He's not a doctor, but he just signed these papers as a doctor, so it's like this joke on top of the joke that you only get if you're really paying attention, because I think a lot of people are just watching Peter Lorre's expression at that moment.
Right. But Elaine sees the bodies at the end. So she's in on it at the end. Cary Grant is trying to shush her as she's saying, it's true. And he's kissing her, and suddenly she swoons, and he's like Superman at the end of Superman 2.
There
with the magic kiss.
Wiped it away.
He completely forgets about it.
She doesn't remember at all.
Walks out in a daze. Yeah.
So I'd be swooning too if Cary Grant kissed me.
It's what's fascinating to me, just like a footnote to the Broadway play aspect of it, is that they had a deal with the producers, Karloff being one of them, that they couldn't release the movie while the play was still running. So this sat on the shelf for 2 years.
Wow.
Until the play was finished with its run. And then it was originally supposed to be released in 42, didn't come out until 44. Yes,
well, there you go.
All right. So what kind of buckets for Arsenic and Old Lace?
For me, this is a 4 for sure, because I've seen this like a cajillion times. Like I said, I could recite this movie to you. Like, this is one everyone in my household loves. This movie, we quote it to each other. It's like a very beloved film for us.
Yes, I'm going 3.5. This has special meaning for me and brought back some of those memories. So yeah, I liked it as well.
It was definitely better than Halloween Kills. 2.5 for me.
Okay,
and that might grow on me the more I see it. It is something I think that this.
I actually thought you would go for this because you like Abbott and Costello.
I do. I know. I don't. I think I came in with a preconceived notion of what I was going to watch, and it wasn't what I thought it was. And I don't know, because you're right. I do like those older movies. I do love that slapstick stuff. But this was just, it was weird. And like I said, it took me 3 days to kind of process it. Be like, what the hell did I just watch? And how do I feel about it? And if I saw it on stage, I probably would have loved this. Mm-hmm. So ask me again in a year.
Every once in a while, I'll see it pop up at some local high school doing a production of Arsenic and Old Lace. I've never seen it.
I wish we had this opportunity to do this. I think it would have been fun. I'll see you next week.
No.
We got a bonus.
Muppets Haunted Mansion.
How many times have you watched this, Christina?
Twice.
I've seen it twice.
Yeah.
I watched it 3 times.
Nice.
I mean,
this is the highlight of the week.
Part of it is obviously the Muppets, and I love all the Muppet stuff, but also part of it is if you love the ride.
Yes.
See, this is, I know you guys are much more Disney files. The Muppets over the years, especially since Disney has acquired them, it's been kind of hit or miss. This is perfect venue. This is where the Muppets need to be.
Yes.
Is doing stuff like this. Don't make a 2-hour movie. Don't make an office style TV show. Just take properties like this and drop your Muppets in there for a 60-minute, hour-long special. Perfect.
And talk about the ride. This pays so much respect to the ride. They go through every aspect of the ride.
Literally the whole ride.
Present here. Not in chronological order, but in a way, it's all there. The only thing is,
if you've ridden this ride once, 3/4 of
outside of the mansion is a little bit off. It's more like a combination of the two, of the one in California and the one in Florida. Yeah, if you're a fan of the ride, a fan of the Muppets, this is a can't lose prospect.
No, I agree. You start the show with Dancing in the Moonlight with Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem, and then you're like, all right, I am so in.
The first thing they encounter is the caretaker, which of course in the ride is one of the last things you encounter.
Yeah, because my son was like, why do they have him now? It's like, because the story calls for it. That's why you have
to build a structure around it, and this is on Disney Plus for anybody who doesn't know, by the way.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
I mean, I don't know how many times I've ridden the Haunted Mansion ride. One trip that we went on when my son was about 5, we went on the ride 4 times in one trip. In one trip.
Like once after another, or you
like if we went by the ride and we saw that there was like less than a 15-minute wait, we would go in and ride it again.
The same. Every trip, and especially when we went to California and they had the Nightmare Before Christmas layover, we did that like at least 6 or 7 times.
So I don't know how many times I've ridden the Haunted Mansion ride in my lifetime, like, more than 25, I would say. It probably more than that. But the interesting thing about Haunted Mansion is they had to get this right, because the Haunted Mansion is probably the single ride that has the biggest fan base, like, for a ride in either park.
Is that because of the lore behind it, that they really just they really built a lot of story behind?
There's a huge amount, not only of lore, about the ride itself, but like the history of making the ride is very legendary. There've been multiple books. There's been multiple books about it. There's a podcast called the Doom Buggies podcast where they actually went through the whole history of the ride. There's more merchandise for this ride, this single ride, than any other ride in Disney history.
It speaks to the general public's fascination with horror. And this ride not only appeals to horror fans, but to Disney fans as well. It's a gateway. It's not, it's not scary. It's family friendly. It's for everybody. And it's really an anomaly in the Disney parks, this house that's off in the corner. It attracts people like a magnet. And I think it just speaks to that, the macabre nature that's there in everyone. And, it's not offensive. It's not overly scary. It's palatable, I think, for anybody, for a hardcore horror fan and somebody that doesn't like horror movies.
Dun, dun, dun.
And so I think because there's so much love for this ride, if they didn't get it right, this would really be a miss.
And they didn't get it right previous to this. The completely awful Eddie Murphy movie that came out like right on the heels of Pirates.
I've never seen it.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
But there's so much stuff that nobody, if you've ridden the ride, then all of these things. You like, there's just a reference to like every prop, every special effect, every whatever that's in the ride shows up in this. So, and the thing I love too, where there were so many great references back to the original Muppet Show.
Muppets, yeah, that's what I was going to say, which is not just the ride itself, but the actual history of the Muppets and the Muppet Show.
I mean, when they were dancing and having the conversations, like that used to be in every Muppet Show, right?
Yeah.
The
little running jokes or whatever.
The dancing jokes. Yeah. The ballroom scene. Yeah.
Let's go back to Darren Criss, though, because I love that opening number where you have, because the whole thing with the Muppet Show was always the guest host.
Yeah.
The guest stars. And you got Danny Trejo in here. You got Ed Asner.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it was just a little cameo. It doesn't say anything.
But even before that, you get Yvette Nicole Brown from Community. She's the limo driver. So all these little cameos pop up. And of course, Will Arnett, who is the human star of the show.
The great MacGuffin.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the MacGuffin.
Yeah, what's up? Here's the one thing I will say, which is the Muppets are, so this all centers on Gonzo and I want to say Rizzo, but they retired Rizzo. Did you know that? They retired Rizzo. Rizzo is no longer a character.
That makes me sad. That makes me sad because
we bring in what's his name, the little prawn. What's his name? What was
Pepe.
And he had all the best lines.
He is a king prawn, by the way.
King prawn. If I don't see some champagne cocktails and horsey turves, ASPCA, I'm out of here. I'm like, that's great. There's like so many of these little throwaway lines. But we do see Kermit and we see Miss Piggy and we see a lot of the other characters. They don't really play into this, although it's played for jokes, like when Miss Piggy shows up as
Madame Leota. Yeah.
Right,
and she's like, this is my only cameo.
But Will Arnett with that intoning deep voice.
Yeah.
I love him reading the line, "Welcome, foolish Muppets."
One of the talking statue heads was Pat Sajak, by the way.
Yes, I did notice that.
I didn't. I had to watch it a second time. John Stamos has a little cameo in here as well, which is funny.
He's better in this than he was in that entire movie last week.
He had to get through that movie in order to.
He had the big jump scare here. He had the big jump scare. I jumped when he turned.
Fozzie was the Hatbox.
The
Hatbox Ghost. I love that they had the Hatbox Ghost. Now, this is interesting because in California, they brought him back, but he's not in Florida at the moment.
Yes, he's not in Florida.
No, no.
Well, there's a whole story behind the Hatbox Ghost. Just like there is a story behind every single thing in the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fozzie looked creepy though. They did.
Yeah, I did like that.
Do him right.
He was like, how'd you die on stage? He goes, I'm dead.
And then Statler and Waldorf had their own.
You can't have those. Right. Boo.
Yeah.
Why are you guys booing me? We're dead. That's what we do. Boo.
And the other thing I loved is that the show broke down in the middle, just like the ride.
Yes, yes.
Right. The goat that shows up.
The goat.
What's your deal?
You have to fall out the window because that's what you do in the ride. You actually fall out the window backwards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
after leaving the attic, which is inhabited by Constance Hatchaway, and we get her too.
The bride.
No stone is left unturned here from the ride.
Yeah. I mean, I did wish there would be a little more grim grinning ghosts. I mean, as soon as I hear the instrumental theme, I start singing along. If you've ever ridden the ride, you definitely know that song.
And you also get not only the hitchhiking ghosts hitching a ride at the end, but it wouldn't be complete without that hurry back.
Yeah.
Hurry back. So yeah, I loved this. I thought it was funny.
This was a lot of fun.
It was fun. It was like a return to form for the Muppets.
Yes, I agree. Absolutely. I will say, unfortunately, Matt Vogel has taken over for playing Kermit, and he is the weak link here. Steve Whitmire was let go, and it's noticeable that, hey, listen, no one's ever going to replace Jim Henson as Kermit, but the man's been gone for how many years, Whitmire, unfortunately, just they had an issue when they released him, and Vogel stepped in, and I think he did a good job, but he is the one noticeable character who does not sound. Everyone else is spot on, I felt.
Well, Gonzo is still Dave Gold, so
yeah. It's all over the place. You go online and people either love this or absolutely hated it. That it's crazy, but
who could hate this? Who could hate this? Come on.
I agree. I hope they do more of these. This is where I feel that the Muppets can make a comeback.
Again, I mentioned the Doom Buggies podcast earlier, and the hosts of that show actually went to, on the latest episode, they talked about this. They went to like a special event with Bill Beretta and Dave Golds where they talked about making this. Apparently, this has been in the works for more than 30 years. There's also an interview with the director. So if you guys are interested in more information about this,
I'm definitely gonna check it out.
The Doom Buggies podcast. And actually, if you want to know about the history of the ride, if you want a real deep dive into the history of the ride, go back to the beginning of the Doom Buggies podcast. And they go through sort of every twist and turn of because this is one of the reasons I think why this is so legendary is because getting this mansion built was like it was like climbing Everest.
Right, because it existed for years before there was a ride.
Yeah.
In Disneyland. That's where it first
just as like a landmark.
Well, if you go back and if you don't want to take as deep of a dive as Christina is saying, if you just watch the hour-long history on Inside the Attraction, which is also on Disney Plus, it has its own episode on the Haunted Mansion.
But yeah, there was so many things that happened. Walt wanted, a Haunted Mansion type attraction. There were years spent where, they were trying to figure out what direction to go in, if it was going to be a walk-through attraction, if it was going to have a ride, what should the tone be? There was just so many debates about how this was going to end up. And then unfortunately Walt died, and then it ended up becoming kind of a mishmash. And in the end, I feel like it's a strongly Mark Davis ride, a lot like Pirates of the Caribbean. but has elements of a lot of the other things that came in over the years. This is a ride that has a lot of history. So again, I think that contributes to the really rabid fan base because there's so much to chew on when it comes to this ride.
Do you think there's another ride out there? Like if they were going to continue doing this and they chose another ride that has this potential to work on two different levels?
Like a Muppet special, you mean?
Yeah, correct. Like I'm thinking like the abandoned 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
I don't think there are as iconic as the Haunted Mansion. Pirates might come close, but
yeah, that would be interesting.
But the only thing is like they've done Muppets Treasure Island, so they've already kind of done the pirate thing.
Dived into that.
Muppets Treasure Island is great, by the way. I think that there's a lot that they can do because almost all the thing that distinguishes Disney rides from a lot of other rides is almost all of them have a story. You know, they have a narrative in them. Right. It's not just you get on the ride and you go in a circle and then you leave. You know, so I think that there's definitely potential for them to explore more stuff like this, but Haunted Mansion is definitely kind of the meatiest of the rides in terms of story for the ride and story behind the ride.
Do we want to bother to give buckets or just
I don't think
a hearty recommendation?
Hearty recommendation.
Yeah. We all love this one.
Yes, we do.
It was a lot of fun.
We do. So next week, I don't know how long this is, but we are embarking on an epic here. Dune, we are going to be talking about next week.
There we go. It's out there. I know a lot of people have seen it.
I don't think this is going to be a spoiler to anybody here, but this is not the entire story. This is made with a sequel in mind. So it kind of is like a Fellowship of the Ring where it ends and they're hoping that they're going to be able to make it does well enough that they can make the second part of Dune. So this is not
like it's done pretty well so far. Yes.
But again, you have to question. I mean,
streaming versus the.
Yeah, I don't know if you're trying to set up a franchise. You know, why would you like release this on streaming as well?
Well, I think that's what the director Villeneuve, right?
Villeneuve. Yeah.
Villeneuve. That was what he was arguing, which is, you know, originally they were just going to dump it on streaming, and he's like, this needs a theatrical release.
So you have the choice. If you have HBO Max, you can see it at home or it's playing in the theater. I
am seeing it in theater.
Which is what they want you to do. So apparently this is amazing to look at. I haven't watched it yet, but
I think they were even touting it in IMAX. It's that epic.
What are we pairing it with, Jeff?
Beetlejuice. Don't say it third time. Sandworms. We're going straight up sandworms theme here. Maybe a secret 5 bucket, by the way.
Just a secret 5 bucket.
Beetlejuice it's pretty flawless. There's not much bad I can say about that. Tip my hat already. There you go. Well, I guess you're gonna have to stay tuned until next week and find out what we think of Dune. So go watch it if you haven't already.
Thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.
Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
Hurry back.
Yeah.
Hurry back.